maintain confidentiality of insider information learned about ECI or about our clients. Any words of wisdom for us, Ben Dow?
Use good judgment and discretion with things that seems like they should be private or especially proprietary. And just to know that we should be letting everyone know when we do sign confidentiality agreements on certain projects that we work on, like in a factory or in a big business. Sometimes they'll actually have us sign those confidentiality agreements, and we should be pushing that out to all of you just so that you know as well. So
thanks for
I
sharing.
don't know if there's anything else to say about that. Thank you.
Thank you. All right, tough week for us in the safety world. We had Quotable this week, so our pretty much day counts have been wiped out, and no real safety shout outs this week as we struggled kind of prioritizing safety. So let's zero in, let's focus in today. Let's start today off strong, minute by minute, hour by hour, not taking on unnecessary risk and correcting unsafe conditions. With that said, I'm going to kick it over to Amy. She's going to be helping us. We had a lot of back injuries, back pain, early start of the season. It's historically, it's been happening. So we're going to try to have this meeting maybe a little bit earlier next year, but she's going to kind of talk about and how to improve us moving forward to try to prevent some of those back pains and help us with some of the back injuries that we're dealing with. So it's all yours, Amy.
Good morning. Let's see if I can share here. There we go.
Yeah. Well, that's cool. We see you in front of it, in front of your board.
Oh, well, look at that.
How did you do that?
Yeah.
I don't know how to do that.
So
We're gonna start doing
I
that
actually
from
didn't
now
know
on.
that's what I did. I hit presenter. There's a little picture where it says share and it says presenter in front of it. And I thought that just means you can see my little picture, but apparently you get to see me in front of this.
Mm-hmm.
All right.
Interesting.
So
It is cool.
all right. So let's see how this goes. So we're going to talk about low back pain prevention and pain management. This sounds like it's a good topic given that there's been some injuries, and a lot of injuries tend to be around low back pain and lifting and thinking before you lift. Let's see, my slides won't go. There we go. So when you feel low back pain, the first thing you feel is pain, right? So what actually is pain? The pain's actually the brain interpreting sensory input from your body. So there's a little sensor, say, on your foot. And that sensor gets activated. Say there's a scrape or you drop something on it. There's not immediate pain. That sensor has to send a signal all the way up to your brain, and your brain has to decide how to interpret that sensory input. And then it sends information back down. So say that's a scrape and it was something falling on you. The reaction is your brain pulls your foot away from that spot so that doesn't happen again. It could be severe pain. It could be no pain at all because, hey, I felt that before and that doesn't bother me. So pain's kind of this funny thing. It's often a perception of a need to protect your body, and it can be related to actually a damaged tissue. So that is, say for our back, a disc that is bulging. So that's a damaged tissue. Tissue irritation. So it could be you're moving the wrong way and a joint is constantly being compressed because you're moving the wrong way. Or the brain upregulating or downregulating a perceived pain. And by that, I mean a pain that you might have had before. So say a bug bite. Your brain's going to down-regulate that pain and you might feel it and it doesn't feel great, but you're actually able to really not think about it and ignore it because the brain down-regulates that pain. And a lot of times in chronic pain that we've had for a while, the dial actually gets turned up. And even though there's no damaged tissues, the brain keeps saying pain, pain, pain. So if we look at our back, at the center, we have our spine. We have the vertebrae, which are the bones of our back, and the discs in between. So that makes a little sandwich between two vertebrae and the disc. And coming out between each disc is a nerve. In the picture on the left, you can see the big sciatic nerve coursing down kind of through your butt muscle. Then you have all these muscles, you have all these nerves, you have joints, and they're all layering over each other. So in a tiny little space about the size of your thumb, all of those things are right there. So oftentimes when you see a PT or a chiro or a doc, we don't always know where the pain's coming from because there's a lot of things in this tiny little space right here. So what do you do if you have back pain? So whether the back pain's acute, whether it just happened, or you've had back pain for years, it really is important to see a healthcare professional. So that might be an MD, an ortho, a sports med doc, a PT, a chiro, somebody that has experience with this so that we can help guide you. There's a ton of information on the internet. Some of it's amazing and some of it's not great, but you need to know what your starting point is and what you're looking at and what you're looking for on the internet in order to make it useful for you. So the healthcare professional can actually help you guide that. So if you are, we all search around the internet, right? It can help you make a good decision. I'm a PT. My realm of expertise is exercise, and we have a lot of research to suggest that exercise can be used as a tool to manage and prevent low back pain. You don't have to be working out for hours to help to manage and prevent it. And just as importantly, use proper lifting techniques and sitting postures to reduce your risk of developing low back pain. Nobody wants to be on the job, go to pick up something, have their back go, and be out for 3 weeks, right? If you use those proper lifting techniques, it really reduces that risk. So like I said, exercise can be used as a prevention and a treatment, but which ones do you do? There's so many out there. So what exercises you need really depends on what's causing your low back pain. So is it a disc? Is it a joint? Is it your muscles? And how long you've had it. Did you just get low back pain? We're going to do very different exercises than if you've had low back pain for 20 years and you've been lifting for a long time. So those are two of the big things that we want to consider when figuring out what exercises you need. So there's a couple of different areas of exercise I want to focus on. And the first is mobility. So this is just moving your body. A lot of us think of core stability and keeping your core tight and strong. We also need to be able to move it. And a lot of times in acute low back pain, so that's when you just injured it, mobility is really key. And gentle mobility. So this is laying on your back and swinging your knees side to side, that cat-cow and pelvic tilts. Those three go together. On the other side, the knee to chest and prone push-up, that actually depends on where the pain is. So knee to chest, that often works if you have muscle pain or joint pain, or even somebody who has kind of a degenerated arthritic back and they need to open some space in it. That knee to chest works really well. On the other hand, if you just injured your disc, the prone push-up is often the go-to. You never want to do a knee to chest if you just injured your disc. So you might find if you try one of these and it doesn't work, okay, that's not the right thing, you go to the next one. And that's where somebody with some expertise in this area can help guide you on which one to choose. Stretching is the next one. A lot of the times some muscles get overworked and really strong and tight, and other ones become weak. We want to stretch those strong over tight muscles. They can start pulling on your back in different ways. So in the front, your quads and your hip flexors pull you forward. So even this little hip flexor stretch where you stand in a lunge and push your hips forward, you could do that on the job very easily. Hamstring stretching and then a seated glute stretch. Most of the time, these are easy things that you can do, whether at work, before work, or after work. Stability is another big one. We transfer weight through our trunk. So we want that core to be stiff and stable when we're moving things. So a really easy and good example is throwing something. If you just throw a ball with your arm, the ball doesn't go very far or go very fast. But if you start that movement through your hips, transfer that power through your trunk and core, and push it through your arms, that's how baseball players can throw really, really fast, really far all the time, is they transfer that weight from their hips through the core to their shoulder. That core has to be stable in order to do so. That core is moving, your trunk is moving when you do it, but it's very stable to do it. Another way of thinking about it is using a solid lever versus a wet noodle. A wet noodle doesn't really push anything very far. A solid lever really does. So if we make that core a solid lever, these are ways to do it. These are probably the mid levels of the exercises. So we can make these harder or easier. So we could do planks at a very low level up against a wall, side planks up against a wall, but then we could also do those on the floor, reaching and tapping and moving our arms and legs around that stable core. That's the ideal place we want to get to, is where you could hold this position and move your limbs around it. And then strengthening. This is really, really specific to your experience and your knowledge. If you are this professional Olympic level weightlifter, your experience and knowledge is very different, and the things that you will get for your exercise and what you need to do is very different than the guy on the right who looks like he's doing light weights and is just starting out with some exercise. Those are two very different people with different experiences, different knowledge bases about exercise, and I'm going to prescribe them different things. So that's a really important piece with the strengthening piece. We want all of those together. So our mobility, our flexibility, our strengthening, and our core stability. And there's always all these additional therapies, right? So like I said, my expertise is in that area of exercise, but we have tilt tables. Bar hangs are the poor man's tilt tables. E-stim, chiropractic, injections, even surgery. All those things might be appropriate for low back pain as well as the exercise. 90% or so, don't quote me on that number, but it's about right, at least do well without any kind of injection or surgery. So most of the time, exercise, the correct therapies can be really helpful and get you through that low back pain. So the second piece of this is that workplace safety, and that prevention piece. So we all know that saying, an ounce of prevention goes a long way. So we want to consider our risks, and we have risks that we can modify and risks that we cannot modify. So your age and probably the weight of the load, things you can't modify, but how you lift that load, how you're moving, how far you have to move. Those are all things that you can think about and you can change when you're doing a lift. Let's see. So things to minimize your risk is to lift properly. So you've seen, I've posted the pictures many times of that classic lifting where you are squatting down, keeping the weight very close to you. Your spine is neutral and stiff. You're engaging your muscles. You're not overextending or over flexing your spine. And really a big thing, avoid twisting and lifting. Those discs do not like that. Kind of like that measure twice, cut once, think twice, lift once. Is there a better way to do this? Can you move the vehicle closer? Can you utilize multiple people? Can you utilize equipment? It only takes one little movement for that back to go and for you to be out of work. If you take that extra minute or two to really think about what you need or wait for somebody, you might be saving your back and yourself a lot of struggle. So you all in the fields don't just do that classic lift of a box, right? You're not in a factory. So you're lifting these objects that are often really oddly shaped. And there are proper ways to lift that too. You can see in all these different pictures that there is that squat piece to it. So you're always squatting down. You're always getting close to that whatever you're lifting, and you're always keeping a stable spine. So that's really important. I really like this picture. I think OSHA might have put this out of how to pick up these unusually sized objects, and there is still a safe way to do it. You don't always have to kind of bend over and just lift from your back. So kind of again, in summary, if you have back pain, find a healthcare professional. ECI has a great team of people that they can send you to. You have some of these tools if you have back pain to start to manage it. And then you can pick some of these up to help prevent it, to keep you healthy through your big work season right now. And then really use those proper lifting and sitting techniques so you don't increase that risk of developing low back pain. And that's all I've got.
Yeah, thank you very much. And Ben McKinney put in the chat, think twice, lift once. Let's try to all walk home from this meeting with that mindset, please.
Yeah, avoid that impulsive behavior just to lift something. A lot of times we think, oh, this is not smart, but we do it anyway. Whenever you think, boy, this doesn't seem smart, don't do it. That means you can.
Exactly.
Especially those of us that are getting into that age group where you can't do as much as you could do it. You realize that you can't lift as much as you used to be able to lift without getting hurt. Bodies change as you get older too.
It's a
Right.
hard realization for a lot of people. When you're younger, you bounce back really fast. I hate to say it. When we're older, we have all these little injuries that start to add up, and you've got to really acknowledge
Yep.
that and pay attention to that. Because we don't heal as fast as we age.
Oh, thank you, Amy.
You're very welcome. Thank you for having me.
Yep. Have a good weekend. It looks like it's gonna be sunny and nice.
Yeah.
Lovely. Thank you. You too.
Thank you,
All right.
Amy.
Okay, I'll take over the screen. And I don't know how to put my face in front of the screen.
I don't either. That was cool.
All right. So no real new announcements this week. Just continuing the Facebook and Instagram social media connection here. That we'd like everybody to check in and see what's going on there. There's some interviews and other information, just good stuff, social media stuff. And then the healthcare premium holiday is continuing. We do have some new employees. This is Adam Sauceville. He's with the Heavy Civil Group, and Alan Nutting with the Civil Group. So welcome both of you guys. And I have a quick link to our primary care wellness program. And now we're going to jump right into the project of the week. And we have Matt Saganowitz. Matt, do you want to take over, or do you want me to scroll down?
Yeah, I'm going to just try to take over a little quickly so I can read
Perfect.
this. It's pretty long.
So
I'm
I'll
pretty.
say stop sharing on. Okay.
I
you
say
have-
I'm pretty good at this. I don't know. Can you guys see the Waterbury derailment
I
right
see
up
it.
here?
I
Perfect.
got it, mate.
And you guys can hear me well?
Yes.
All right. So in Waterbury, in early morning hours on Wednesday, April 10th, a wheel bearing on a loaded rail car headed southbound freight train failed, causing one car to derail but remain upright. The car derailed near the water treatment plant where ECI did a large concrete project in 2013. It was dragged nearly 6 miles. Although the car remained upright, it did a substantial damage to the track structure. A large number of direct fixation bolts on a through girder bridge were broken. One rail off the end of the bridge was broken. A mainline switch was damaged severely. But the lion's share of the damage was the 3,300 broken, mangled cross ties, which you guys will see in the pictures coming up. Cross ties are the hardwood timbers that the rails are fastened to. They generally are 8'6" long and are 6 to 7 deep and 8 to 9 inches wide, weighing just under 200 pounds. So they're big, heavy timbers. Everybody's seen, cross ties. They're big, and they destroyed a lot of them. ECI was on site early that morning to assist the bridge and track work. We immediately deployed crews to fix the bridge, the broken rail, and the straight rail through the south switch. Working with operators and trackmen from the railroad, ECI went to work replacing enough ties to restore rail service. We had rental maintenance of way equipment reserved for another project later this spring, which we immediately turned around and had shipped to help us with changing out all these ties. This is a lot of ties, big production. In the meantime, to get the train back into service and at least running through there at slow speeds, ECI used lower production methods to get enough good ties in the track to restore 10-mile-per-hour traffic. Normal track speed in this area when everything is fine for a freight is about 40 miles an hour. And for Amtrak or passenger trains, up to speeds of 59 miles an hour. Rail traffic was restored after about 4 long days, but the job was far from over. Our production track equipment arrived, as did thousands of new cross ties to replace the damaged ones. ECI's track gang, or tie gang, I should say, was made up of our core track crew and supplemented by members of other crews. We numbered as high as 12 men per day and worked alongside 2 to 4 workers from the railroad, and also Phil Scoff gave us a couple guys, which is another Vermont rail contractor. Work proceeded 14-hour days until the job was complete on April 25th, about 2 weeks after the derailment. So that's pretty good timing. They worked really hard, long nights, long days. ECI rented equipment plus a couple pieces of our own allowed us to install the ties in a production rate. We don't typically need to achieve this type of rate on bridges and crossings and specialty projects that we typically target. The crew on the crew's own mechanical aptitude and support from our shop people was essential to keep the equipment running. Every day brought new mechanical challenges, from failed limit switches to broken drive motors, jammed spikers, and broken linkage. The men often worked into the night repairing the equipment to get it ready for the next morning's work. The equipment lineup consists of 2 tie inserters, 1 rented and 1 of our own, a spiker gauger, a spike puller, and 2 plate machines. Rail lifters, 1 was rented and 1 was ECI owned. 1 to 2 of our ECI log trucks for laying out the new ties and collecting old ties. A high rail pickup to chase the gang, reinstalling anchors and cleaning up scrap. The railroad performed all the surfacing and ballast regulating with their own equipment. So after we did all our work, they went through with their high production tamper and surfacer and just, made it all nice and smooth. The total event was very unfortunate given the scope of the damage, a lot of damage, but there was a silver lining evident. One is that the car remained upright and no collateral damage occurred in this densely populated area through which it was dragged. The second is that ECI was already tooling up for the work on a similar scope, so the timing was right for us to respond in force. Ironically, ECI is under contract to install several hot box detectors throughout the state, which will have the ability to detect excessive heat in wheel bearings and alert the dispatcher of those type of situations. So the train can be alerted. Funding of this installation of these detectors was made available by federal government after the disaster in East Palestine, Ohio, which was caused by the same issue. And if you guys remember that derailment in East Palestine, the train had chemicals on it, where the car had the same issue with a bearing, derailed, and created a disaster of chemicals, and it started on fire, made headline news. So we are going to be installing some of these detectors throughout this railroad to help prevent these type of situations, because if this was installed already, it could have been prevented and saved the railroad a lot of money. We'll go into some pictures now. This is the actual car that got derailed. You can see the axles, right off the bearing and sitting on the outside of the cross tie. It was on the inside for a while, and I'll go over that, but it ended up on the outside here, and again, dragged 6 miles before they even realized they had a problem. I'm going to skip over these pictures and come right back to them. So this is in a proximity of where the derailment started, further north. The train was headed south. This is the through girder, and it's kind of hard to see in this picture, but that car was off the tracks and skating along these bolts, and you can see where the bolt is missing and the clip is gone too, and it happened all the way down periodically. So what we did was we put a lift under the bridge. This is the bridge right when you come in to Waterbury around the roundabout. You go under this bridge, and we closed down the lanes, and we worked from up above and down below to replace these bolts in the clips. You can see them just laying there in the broken pieces. Destroyed a lot through there. So I'll go back up here. So as the train went down, it came into a switch down further south, and literally the tire or the wheel was coming through here, hit this frog, and jumped. Here's a picture of a tie plate. I mean, these are heavy steel plates, you know, just destroyed by this. And you can see it better here. It was running along this side of the track, hit this frog, jumped it, and bent the heck out of it. You can see it, if you guys can see my cursor, and then jumped over here and then rode both sides. In this picture, you can see a fully broken piece of rail. And then you can see the tracks from the wheels here. Let me just make sure I didn't miss anything, because I kind of screwed up putting these in order. Here are the guys working on the frog to remove it, because the solution here was just to get rid of the turnout and get the main track going for train traffic. Every day it wasn't running was, you know, lost revenue for the railroad. And you can see this is after the turnout. Here's the end of the turnout. You can see it just being dragged right through, destroying all these ties all the way down. 3,300 ties, which is a lot.
So Matt, that must have been the last car on the train.
No, believe it or not, it was a middle car.
Wow.
Here's a picture of all the ties they brought in. You know, they resourced ties from different railroads. They resourced ties from us just to keep the work going. And like I said in the narrative, you know, we had to go through and just spot check some ties just to, you know, the goal is to get that train moving. Even if it goes through this area at 10 miles an hour, it's better than not going through at all. So with this high production equipment to change out this many ties in this short of time, you know, like the narrative said, we were kind of geared up for this already for another job, but we expedited the delivery and got this equipment here. This is one of the pieces of equipment, the spiker. This is actually looking at, like, you'd be in the seat, you'd have two controls, and you line up the spiker to the plate, and you just drive it in. Really efficient when it works, you know, and you know, a lot less labor intensive, more production. See, they have foot pedals to move it forward, and then they have like joysticks to kind of aim it to get it into these holes. Here is Jake loading up some ties, and he'll go ahead of the gang and lay out the ties where they need to be inserted. So they load up the log truck and they bring them out, and they just drop ties all the way along the thing. Here's a good picture of the gang, and we call it a gang. It's just old track talk because it's a group. So the first one would be the tie spike puller. The second one is actually our ECI tie inserter. It does lift the ties or the track, the rail, so you can, as it was pulling out the ties, we'd pull out the plates as well. This big tie inserter would be behind it, inserting the ties. And now it gets a little hard to see, but there is another unit for the plates. It lifts the tracks up so we could slide the plates under. The spiker comes through, spikes, engages that to the tie, and then we have support equipment behind it, like the high rail excavator in the truck, which would go back behind the gang to get like more spikes and clean up type of stuff. It's a pretty efficient, productive gang when it's working. This is the rented tie inserter we got. This thing, just the picture is great, but watching it work and watching it do its thing, it's amazing. It's very productive, very powerful, and it grabs these ties and inserts them, and you know, makes it look like easy work. But a very nice unit there. This picture was taken probably by Jake looking back at the crew. Again, Jake goes ahead of the guys, and you can see him laying out the new ties. They do mark. You can see the new ties we put in there to get the trains going over the tracks. But the blue, you know, each day they'd go through and mark out additional ties to move to replace. And I guess you can't just replace, you know, just start replacing new ties all the way down. You kind of got to go in sections, is my understanding. And then here's the pile of ties that were replaced. There was a lot of them that they destroyed. Pretty crazy project. The guys worked really, really hard. Like I said, long days. But they got it done in 2 weeks, which is pretty impressive. I can give it back to you, Ken, if you want it.
Oh, go ahead and explain, at least read the caption there. And
yeah, this is from the photo archives. It was the Bellows Fall derailment in 2005.
And you see there's a hole in the building. That's kind of an example of what can happen. There was a siding here. You'll see that green box cars on the siding. And when the derailment occurred, it drove one of the box cars into the adjacent building. It was a warehouse, wasn't really occupied. It was just an old abandoned warehouse on the south side of Bellows Falls. But it can be pretty destructive when you have a derailment.
Yeah, and luckily, again, on this derailment, the car stayed upright instead of like just coming loose and, you know, causing havoc with all the other cars behind it.
Probably would have dragged all the cars behind it down.
Yeah. You know, it's amazing. I try to go over this in my head, like, how do they not know? But you're pulling a big, huge freight train, and you don't know. And that's the point of those hot box detectors that will look at the wheels and detect the heat, different heat signatures, and alert the dispatcher, hey, you have a huge heat signature. You better stop the train and take a look at it. And it'll help prevent this stuff. And these type of the detectors came about, especially after that huge derailment that in Ohio with all the chemicals and stuff. Yeah, crazy. Very, you know, it's crazy how long they dragged it, you know, 6 miles.
Yep. Okay, good. Thank you, Matt. I'll turn it back over to the safety department to close it out.
Yeah. Excellent job to the rail crew.
Yeah.
Work safe too. No accidents until the very end. We had a little finger laceration. Other than that, let's work safe today. Let's have a great day. Let's have a safe day. If you watch it in a group setting, please text Tom or myself so we can capture this morning's attendance. Like I said, let's start a new track today. Get those day counts up by working safe each and every minute, hour by hour, day by day, and we can work 360 days without a reportable injury. I know we can do it. Let's start today.
Sounds good. Thanks. Have a good one.
You too.
Thanks, everybody.